Welcome to the 37th meeting of Junto Club. This episode has two spirited discussions. We start by taking up the conversation asking what is science and can science be trusted? We also dive into the Metaverse. What is it? What can it be? Are we excited for it? For any questions, comments, or if you'd like to rant on something important to you, email juntoclubpodcast@gmail.com. This is Junto Club.
Junto Club.
Welcome to the 37th meeting of the Junto Club on January 22nd, 2022. This podcast is inspired by Benjamin Franklin, who in 1727 organized his friends to create a club he called the Junto Club. It was kind of for mutual improvement, where they discussed topics around like science, philosophy, business, politics, and stuff. So we try to imitate that a little bit. We use it as an excuse for someone to research a topic a little bit and then come and talk about it with the others, so we can try to learn a little bit more about the world around us. And that's basically it. So our main topic today will be Metaverse. What is it? Because everyone's talking about it. So I bothered to go look to try to understand, what the heck it is. But before that, we'll have some miniature topics, and Shu likes to bring a quote to discuss.
All right.
So
cool.
Shu, start us off with our quote.
All right. Today's quote is, quote, "Half the truth is often a great lie," end quote, by Benjamin Franklin. Any
All right.
thoughts?
This is a good quote. I like it. I guess I'll just ramble then.
Yeah.
With half the truth, you can deceive someone, but since it's grounded in truth, it's like harder to disprove, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what makes it a great lie. It's pretty straightforward, I think. I feel like we see this stuff all the time, in modern misinformation and media. They'll often base it on something that is true, but then, manipulate it, leave something out that's important. And then it becomes a pain to sort of disprove the myth.
Yeah, no, it's a good quote, but I think it is pretty straightforward. There's always both sides, both sides of political sides sort of have examples of this. Or even single topics, when they discuss COVID, one side will say you're talking about number of cases, but it should be about number of deaths or, people in the hospital or,
how severe it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess oftentimes when statistics come into play, it's is this the right statistic or the wrong statistic?
So I like this quote because, this quote is I think is pretty straightforward, easy to understand, and nothing confusing to me. But the reason I brought it up because of my recent COVID diagnosis. I got COVID recently, and then and also I just listened to a COVID podcast, called the Drive podcast by Dr. Peter Attia, and then they have a very good conversation about COVID and all the other stuff like that. So the reason I brought it up because they talk about actually CDC and all the policies actually that's very COVID policy by the United States, and the way that we're doing COVID right now is really especially mandates, right? All based on science, right? And that's what they claim, based on science. But but now as you dig deeper, actually, some of the science when CDC when they talk about science, sometimes they cherry pick results and stuff like that to basically confirm to whatever their policy is already being adhered to. Right. So some of the policies are actually flawed. It's not really good policy, but they still, implement them. So that's why it kind of inspired me to brought those that I think, so I think that also, made me empathize with the people that anti-vaxxers, right? Why they are against vaccine. And also, a lot of times a lot of people just question about the validity of vaccine, and then those questions just got shut down right away, right? There's always risks to anything, right? But like the people who are very strong about like vaccine just don't want you to talk about it at all, right? Even for like Joe Rogan, when he talk about stuff, people just shut him down, right? Start like, he's misinformation. I don't know. So maybe he's a bad example, but anyway, I'm just saying that people like to shut down conversation because of that. So yeah.
This reminds me of so there's a relevant Joe Rogan clip I saw recently because someone sent it to me, and he was talking about like the rare myocarditis that happens in like young people from some vaccines, right?
Exactly.
So the guy that I think he was like a doctor or something, he's talking to him, he's like, yeah, but he's like, this happens, it's very rare and it usually resolves. But he's like, but COVID has like causes the same myocarditis in the same group way more, like 8 times or something more likely.
Yeah.
And Joe literally just tells him, he's like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And he like fights with him on it. After a little while, he has one of his people like fact check it, and he finds like the reports and the research on it. And then he's like, okay, maybe, but like starts like, I don't know. He starts sort of like, just sort of dancing around it without really wanting to just be like straight. Like, cause essentially it was a very nice view of like, okay, he had a position that he wanted to hold, which was that the vaccines create this dangerous thing. And when, and he just didn't want to accept that actually COVID does the same thing, but much worse. So criticizing this as like a safety about the vaccine doesn't really make sense when you look at the whole truth. This is actually a perfect example of your quote, right? Half the truth is this vaccine can cause a very rare, limited amount of myocarditis, but the whole truth is COVID does it much worse. It might even be the same mechanism, right? Like if it's the spiked proteins on COVID that cause it, it would make sense the vaccine could potentially cause some of the same side effects and symptoms that COVID does. But I don't know if that's true. That's just a guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So what happened to you saying that Joe Rogan doesn't believe that?
Well, he's at least vaccines. I don't know a lot of details about Joe Rogan because I don't watch him, but he's at least vaccine skeptical, right? Like I know he's done the thing where when he got COVID, he took ivermectin and stuff. And then he also got the monoclonal antibodies. But he was at least skeptical about it. And then he didn't want to, he seems to, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's honestly reviewing.
Yeah, I think he used to say that young people doesn't need to get vaccine and stuff like that, right? I'm not sure if that was wholly true, but yeah. I mean, but I think Mike is a ardent listener of Joe Rogan, so you probably have thoughts.
Well,
Don't you listen to Joe Rogan every single day?
Oh, no. I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I don't listen to Joe Rogan almost ever. I usually listen.
What happened? You used to tell me about it. You listen to him every day as you walk to school.
Well, I listened to Joe Rogan is friends with some of the people. I listen to like Jim and Sam on Sirius XM, and I like and Joe Rogan was a pretty regular guest on like Opie and Anthony. Like he credits Opie and Anthony with him starting his podcast, which, and his podcast is obviously one of the biggest platforms in the world now. But so I used to listen to Opie and Anthony, and now I listen to Jim and Sam, who's like essentially their replacement, but that was born out of their show. But so I mean, I think Joe Rogan, yes. I mean, he I don't know that he's totally anti-vax, but I mean, I think a lot of people who are related to him and probably him are very much under the like it should be up to you. There should be no mandates. And I think they generally holds that one. So, I mean, I think that they would say, regardless of the myocarditis issues and stuff like that, I think that they would hold the whole truth would be more that COVID as a whole is not like, I mean, if you look at the statistics, it's not that severe, particularly as we've gotten into more and more variants. Like the variants are not that severe, and therefore it should be and particularly like in young people, it's usually not going to be severe. So it's like even if the myocarditis and things like that are more in COVID than the vaccine, like it should be up to the people themselves whether they get the vaccine, because, one, there's the issue or like the thought, like if you don't get COVID and you don't get the vaccine, then your chances are much
Yeah.
slower of getting.
Yeah, regarding that, vaccine definitely, but booster, right, is a questionable, right? Booster for young people is like because right now I think to start school actually is just honest, even Stanford University on a big university just shut down school, right? And require everybody to mandate everybody to have a booster before they came back. And booster, is gonna increase the risk of myocarditis, right? So the risk and benefit is the risk kind of outweighs the benefits, right? In my opinion,
does it? Because all the data suggests that. So look, there's no medicine that's ever been created that has zero side effects or potential risks, right?
Yeah.
But like on every potential risk, COVID's like 1,000 times worse than the vaccine, at least, if not more, right?
Yeah,
so
but
this is where the risk and benefits doesn't feel like.
No, I'm talking about booster though. Like booster,
if same for the booster.
Booster doesn't really matter, right?
It does matter. See, that's it. It does, right? Because the thing is, apparently, roughly 8 months. There's it's a vague thing, but it seems like roughly 8 months. Most people's immunity or antigens start to wane significantly. So, sadly, it doesn't seem to be a thing like what was it, chickenpox, where you get it once and then you're mostly immune for life.
Gotcha.
But it's not you're not wrong to say, oh, there's some risk to the vaccine, but it doesn't feel like an honest opinion or an honest argument when you're like, well, don't take this vaccine because of this risk. You just take you can just get COVID instead and have vastly higher risk for all that same stuff and more, right? Wow. It doesn't, it's not like a rational comparison.
Sure. And I think a lot of these, a lot of the people who have this argument also are like, if you have COVID, that natural immunity should count for something. That
seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. So, for me, it's like I got I got the vaccines COVID immediately, back in April of last year or whatever it was. And then I got COVID, a breakthrough case in end of September. And basically I waited I didn't get boosted as early as I could have and waited about 4 months before getting boosted, figuring that, natural immunity, as much as that is part of it to me, that on the other side, that it seems irrational that natural immunity does nothing. I don't know, I don't know that we have the data to say how long it protects, but I'm sure it does protect. So basically for me, I waited about 4-ish months to get the booster, figuring out that way.
Yeah, actually, that's something that I want to talk about actually, is the natural immunity versus the vaccine immunity. What do you guys know about it, Matt?
So one thing I've seen is sometimes people try to act like they're fundamentally different or completely different when they're not, because it's largely the same thing. Your immune system responding to the same proteins to make the antigens or whatever. Could be natural immunity could be stronger in the sense that you have a much higher dose, right? If you actually get sick from COVID, you're probably going to have a lot more virus in your system. So you're probably going to basically get a larger dose to have a stronger response. But I don't know. I'm sure people are doing research on it. I don't know if anyone's had anything conclusive.
Yeah, they do. There's 2 studies from CDC that says vaccine immunity is much better than natural immunity.
Really?
Yes. However, no study actually, all the science experts look at it, and these papers are really it will not pass any kind of peer review at all, because they were chirping data, and then the method they're doing just very flawed, right? So making a question, right? Can I really trust the CDC, right? Because is CDC a political organization, right? Because they were run by political appointees, right? So the leadership at least, right, I've appointed. So just look at these 2 studies, right? Kind of makes sense why they try to publish those 2 studies to claim that vaccine immunity is much better than natural immunity, right? Right. But it kind of doesn't, and then the Israel study, right? Israel study actually, they actually did study natural immunity, actually deliver actually much better protection than against COVID vaccines, right? And then COVID vaccines, but yeah. But I mean, then the question I had, I have this question because I just recently got COVID, and I was like, okay, now is this, but natural immunity, it kind of makes sense to me, right? Anything natural is much better than something that you know made in the lab, inject into your body to give you some kind of immunity, right?
No.
Oh.
No?
I feel like that's a fallacy. People often use that like natural's better.
Really?
In general.
Why?
I mean, there's all sorts of natural stuff that will kill you.
What do you mean no? Give me an example.
What do you mean no?
What are you talking about?
All sorts of natural stuff will kill you. Like if you just go drink natural water out of a stream, there's a decent chance you're going to get sick.
I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about natural immunity versus
Okay.
like fake immunity that you get it from, not fake immunity, but manufactured immunity from
the
lab.
But how does a vaccine work, right? Like the vaccine exposes your immune system to it, and then your immune system does the same process it does when it's exposed to the live virus, right? I feel like calling vaccine not natural immunity is a misconception, right? Because it is your own, all it is doing is teaching your own immune system how to fight the virus. Like it's not like the monoclonal antibodies where you're literally being injected with lab made antibodies that, you know, for it. That wouldn't be natural immunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're immunocompromised, a vaccine doesn't help you much or at all, depending on how severe it is, because you don't have an immune system to train. Mm-hmm. It's the basic idea of a vaccine is just expose your immune system as if you were infected without infecting you. So your immune system can learn to fight it without you having to actually get sick.
Yeah. Okay. Then, back to the question though. Can CDC be trusted?
Can any one-off study be trusted? I mean, literally, like, I feel like part of the PhD or part of your defense is often like just admitting that like you need 1,000 more studies to show the same thing, right? I mean, so,
yeah,
like,
exactly. But you know, people are making policies based on these results, right? Now, after these results, you know, the government is making policies and mandate and all the other stuff, right? So.
No, I mean,
and they say if people, they always say, oh, people if disagree with you, just question a little bit and you say, oh, do you not believe in science, right?
Right. No.
What the heck?
I agree.
I believe in science, but I don't believe in scientists. That's what I'm saying.
That is true. That like if policies, like, I mean, I guess once again, it depends on how hardcore the policies are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like if the policies are like we are forcing everyone to do this, and the policies in a way like strong arm science into like supporting them, that's definitely a big issue. But I think
it's currently happening, right? That's what's currently happening right now.
I mean, I'm not saying there's no case of anything wrong, like the CDC being perfect always, but like, is it some sort of major or problematic trend? I feel like on the whole, the CDC.
It is. They're shutting down schools, right? The school is going to have a detrimental issue to these kids and stuff like that, right?
No. So I totally agree. We need to try to get in-person schooling as fast as possible. But like, there's a lot of schools where they don't have enough teachers because too many of them, at least in New York City and the New York area where like Omicron surged really highly, there's schools where like a third of their teachers are out. So they don't have enough teachers to teach kids. And then they're just putting them in the gymnasium to like hang out all day or silly things like that. And it's like, I 100% agree. We should try to get in-person schooling, but like, there's also the realities of like what you need to make that possible, right?
Why are teachers out right now?
Sick with COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because
same thing with
in New York,
Omicron
like went like huge this, in the last few weeks. It's been really big. So a lot of people have been sick and out and they're like struggling just to have enough teachers to do it.
Sure. No,
now, I mean, that probably in a couple of months, that probably won't be an issue anymore. And I would totally agree. Be like, yeah, try to get kids in, but
Sure. I mean, I guess so I do see both sides here. I mean, cause like, okay, initially COVID is a disease that's clearly different. It has a higher rate of death than the flu. It's more contagious than the flu. But I guess as variants become, more contagious and weaker, at what point do we begin to treat it like something like the flu, where there's sort of a seasonal vaccine that's strongly encouraged, but basically, that's that's about it. Like, so I do see Shu's point in the sense of okay, vaccine passports have been necessary to get into restaurants, and it's almost a given that, boosters will be part of those vaccine passports sooner rather than later, regardless of your, whether you've had COVID or not. So at what point do we just say, okay, the initial, stronger variants of COVID seem to have strongly waned. We are left with these weaker variants. We're just going to treat them like we treat the common cold and flu. And we're going to encourage people who are not feeling great or who are immunocompromised to wear masks and, be preventative, but otherwise back to normal.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people are talking about, Omicron potentially being the start of that, right?
Right.
Once the biggest Omicron wave passes, will we be in this COVID is endemic state afterwards? But I don't know. I guess so. There's the details on little stuff. Is natural immunity better than vaccine immunity? How soon do we drop certain policies, whatever? But on the big stuff, are vaccines safe and effective? We have a lot of data from a lot of different countries. So even if you say the CDC, you don't trust the CDC. If you're debating whether vaccines are safe or effective, I'm skeptical about where you're getting your information from, because that seems pretty hard to
No, I'm not debating
right?
that. I'm not debating that, actually. I'm debating some of the policies based on some of the extreme policies. For example, recently, FDA, the booster, right, recommendation booster for 18 young people, maybe 18 and under, right? Those are, FDA circumvented a group of experts, right? They asked to vote for it, right? And then these experts actually vote against boosters, right, for young people, right? And the FDA just take another vote, circumvent these experts, say, because they disagree with the result, right? And they say, okay, we're gonna get another vote, and that vote say, oh yeah, we should recommend booster to young people, right? Because the original expert, they did not see any evidence about the risk of the booster to young people, right? So they vote against it, right? So FDA just circumvented because it's a political, because they want to get as many people vaccinated as possible, right? And that's the number they focus on. That's why the whole government, the administration try to get as many people vaccinated as possible. So they just focus on one number, right? And the number cause them to, bias their views or try to cherry pick results, try to force through policy through, right? So that's some of the policy I'm against, not vaccine. Vaccines, of course, is good for people, yeah. So, yeah. The whole reason I got COVID maybe because I did not get a booster. So I don't know, right?
No. It's it's like I say. I basically got COVID. Let's see. I think my last vaccine was April 14th, and then I got COVID basically October 1st.
Yeah, so, even the policy of get first 2 doses, right? You should space out a lot of experts talk about you should actually what they should have done is space out the first dose and second dose 3 months or something, not 2 months, right? Not 4 weeks, right? They try to get it done as soon as possible, right? Get as many people vaccinated, but the result actually is terrible because a lot of people getting
right. You get I can't remember what the numbers
breakthrough
were,
cases. Yeah,
preliminary numbers suggested you were getting the vast majority of protection with the first dose and only a little bit of gain at the second dose. And then I got sick just before 6 months, so it essentially waned pretty hard at 6 months. So I guess that's, when I got COVID, assuming, natural immunity was not, that much better than the vaccine. I just basically waited about 4-ish months and then got the vaccine, figuring that would protect me for 4 or 5 more months, or the booster, 4 or 5 more months.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess in the last rant for me on this is that, I mean, what actually is science, right? A lot of people say, okay, you need either a lot of people always people on the lab always claim that, if you don't believe in vaccine, you don't believe in science, right? But science is not belief. Science is like something that is in terms of probability, right? And evidence, right? You always say, you all done study, you all know that, okay, the evidence show that this is probably true, but science is never certain, 100% certain of anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so you can't really be like, okay, this is good, this is bad, right? So,
right. Well,
so,
I mean, the outcome variables.
Science is the ultimate half truth that I'm talking about.
Yes.
Well, I think this goes back to what I said earlier. Like, there's a lot of details we're still figuring out and people are hashing out, but we have a huge amount of evidence on some basic things, right? And so a lot of anti-vaxxers aren't doing honest, skepticism. They're just throwing out nonsense that, disagrees with huge amounts of data. So, I mean, if someone, says that, the earth is flat, and I don't need to, I don't have to be I feel like it's fair to be obviously you don't believe in science if you think the earth is flat, right? Not that anti-vax criticism is quite that bad, but,
I mean, hold on.
If you say science is the accumulation of lots of evidence, and then if we have that on an issue, then ignoring that would, in a sense, not be believing the science, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, probability correct, right? Even gravity, right? You go into I don't know, quantum mechanics, quantum space, the science breaks down, right? But I mean, going back to Earth is flat. For all intent and purpose, Earth is flat in your local area.
In a local area.
You walk down the street, it is flat to you. You base your decisions, you're not thinking, the Earth is wrong. I need to do this, do that. No, but our intent and purpose for you every single day, Earth is flat to me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, for all intents and purposes, America's the only country for me, right? When I'm walking down the street, the existence of other countries and other places of the world doesn't really matter to me.
No, Nay is going too far.
But,
you and I only exist when Matt sees us.
What?
You and I only exist when Matt sees us. Going that way.
Yeah, that's right. So, no, that's...
But, if you go, look a little further out, you look at something out on the ocean, you can see it dipping below the curve if it's something tall. Anyway, maybe. Whatever. We don't need to argue about flat Earth.
No.
This was fun. I'm slightly concerned about where you're getting your info, Shu, but it was fun to have this discussion anyway. So.
Oh, I got my info from you can listen to a podcast, the Peter Attia, MD. The Dry podcast. He had very good, I would say, a good balanced conversation about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You should listen to it 2 hours, but I will, Anyway, so.
All right.
Well, before, just my final thought on this is basically that life is just a multi-dimensional signal, and that we're just the rate at which we sample the signal can dictate a lot about what we learn about our world.
Can you dumb it down?
Deep.
Yeah, that's right.
Why you make it so complicated?
Well, no. So, if you think about an audio signal,
Mike just showed that he had to appear to be smart.
You can't have an episode without, putting up those credentials, right? I have a PhD, by the way.
No, it's just if you think about an audio signal, right? It's like a wave. And if you sample that wave at different rates, what you hear is going to be vastly different.
Mm.
So, whereas like, so I mean, if you just think about like the world we move through as like different signals, so the light that's hitting us, the light that's going through our eyes, and the speech we hear, like our world is made up of signals. So if you sample the signals at different rates, so if our outcome so the outcome variables of experiments are samples, and then you're going to get different results. So.
But you are just saying what Matt was saying earlier in a very, very complex way.
Yes.
Matt basically just saying that he thinks the whole world is the United States because he only live in the United States.
That's
he
right.
never been to other countries, so that's why he thinks everything is like American, right?
Right.
So you were just saying the same thing that he was saying earlier in a very complex way.
Yeah, that's right.
In a very cool way, pretty cool way, though.
That's right. I was trying to be cool, Shu.
She's got to shut that down, Mike.
Well,
He's the cool one on this podcast. You can't step on his turf, okay?
Okay, that is true. Then, I'll just go back to, I knew one person who got myocarditis from the vaccine, so everyone gets it.
Oh, you do?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Well, there were news stories about it. So I've heard of 4 people that have gotten myocarditis at a young age from the vaccine. So it's dangerous. So, there you go.
All right. Recap what you say. You say what? Multi-signal again?
Yeah. Well, no, it was just, So, I mean, it just the,
repeat what you say earlier in the first sentence. That was really cool.
So the world. The world we walk through is just multiple signals, and the rate at which we sample those signals determines our experience. So,
all right. That could be a very good scientific theory. You should prove it.
Yes, mathematical proof for that. I don't know.
Write a paper on it. All right.
Okay. Any other side topics we wanted to bring up?
Not right now, but are we talk about Blizzard and Activision?
We could. Microsoft
that dovetails nicely into Matt's main topic. So
yeah, possibly. So yeah, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, which is the company that bought Blizzard earlier on. Some people are freaking out about it. Do y'all care? Y'all aren't really gamers, so.
Yeah, not really. Why people are freaking about it?
Some people. So there's kind of 2 big reactions I've seen. Some people are like, oh my gosh, it's the continual conglomeration of major corporations, and it's all going to be 2 or 3 giant companies control everything. So they don't like the whole buying up things. And then other people are like, Activision Blizzard has been shit the last few years, which is pretty hard true. And they've been having a bunch of problems. And so they're like, maybe Microsoft can kind of get them to help them out to fix their shit, because they own some games and intellectual property that people really like, but they've been bad. They've been having trouble.
I thought the trouble is that they have a lot of HR issues, the rampant sexual.
That is a good bit. That is one major component of the trouble they've had, where more and more things keep coming out about a sexual harassment and terrible, work environments and stuff.
But that's fundamental. You mentioned it. They have all these IPs what's that? World of Warcraft or something like that.
Warcraft is very famous. Starcraft is famous.
Yeah, Starcraft, right? So I think the reason they are bad and not being doing good because the HR is bad. Fundamentally, the leaderships are terrible because if you treat people that way, you can't expect an organization to do really good work, great work, if you treat your people very badly, right? So,
and also there's just been at least accusations that the company as a whole has really moved away from trying to make good games versus just trying to do what can crank out the most short-term profit. So some people are hoping that Microsoft might turn that around, maybe replace a lot of the leadership and management to create a better work environment with more long-term goals focused on actually making good stuff. But, will that happen? That's anyone's guesses. I'm not too worried about the whole buyout thing because, video games is an industry that's very easy to get into. So some people are like, it's an oligarch. like, was it oligopoly? I don't really
Mhm.
know how you say it. Like, not a monopoly because there's not one company, but there's like only a few.
Yeah.
But like video games don't really work like that. It's very easy to get into, and we regularly see small or indie studios like hit big with huge titles that get really popular. And there's always new people coming in trying to start making video games. So if you think of the market, it's kind of a natural ecosystem. If tons of new people are constantly coming in, a lot of them are going to fail, but some of them are also going to get big. Some are going to be buyed up. That's kind of like a natural cycle, right? There's always a cycle of new people coming in, failing, being bought, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't seem, I don't think there's a market trend towards just bigger people. It's just, it's part of the natural process of like the market kind of sorting out, right?
Mhm.
Like if there was never any buyouts, we'd just continually expand to have a more and more huge array of developers in independent studios.
I guess is the concern though that, I mean, Blizzard, Activision is clearly the biggest probably, and Microsoft is like,
Neither of those were the biggest, and I don't think even
really?
together they're the biggest gaming studio. So
Who is? I mean, Rockstar's big, but it's not that big.
Hold on, I saw some list on this. I think maybe Sony or Nintendo might be. There's Sony, I think, is the biggest, and then Tencent in China has bought a shit ton of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I think those three might all still be bigger than the combined. Oh, Nintendo might be overtaken. I don't know. They're not going to. I don't think they are expected to be the biggest. I mean, market values change right over time, but I don't think they'll even combined be the biggest studio. So I wouldn't fear too much. I think it's more likely to actually be a good thing than a bad thing in terms of like games.
No, I mean, that is fair. And I guess with like, I mean, you're like, there are PC gamers, there are more console gamers, and there's a diversity of consoles at this point that have like, I mean, like, I don't think sort of the like Xbox, like Nintendo Switch or whatever Nintendo makes next, and like PlayStation are going away anytime soon. So at least there's some diversity with respect to like, like when a game is created, it's often like ported between 4 different things. So there's opportunity for like independent companies to make games that can work well across the 4, and studios to like help port across the 4. So
yeah, that reminds me of a good point. I think some of the people who were maybe worried the most were like kind of Sony PlayStation fans who are worried that Microsoft's going to use this to like lock out games from PlayStation that they like, that might have been owned by like Activision or Blizzard.
Right.
And I mean, that could happen. I don't know, but I'm kind of on the fence of like, well, if you're going to buy a console that's controlled by one company, like this is sort of what you have to expect, right? Like, yeah, you can go play, you can get the other console, you can play games on your phone or your computer. So I'm not that concerned about it. But if you just want to play on your PlayStation potentially, and there's a certain title you want, maybe it becomes an issue.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about phone games, but no, yeah. I mean, so that I guess when I was thinking about sort of the purchase and people being afraid, that was my first thought is like, are they going to? Because that I feel like used to be a big thing. Like I can't even remember what the games were, but there were certain games when I went over friends' houses and they had like the different system where I'm like, oh, this is cool, but they weren't on, like the Xbox or whatever.
Right, because they do keep like Sony and Microsoft keep a few of their like flagship games like just on their system because that's what encourages people to buy their stuff.
Right.
Like Spider-Man.
I don't think Spider-Man's one of those, but I don't know.
Spider-Man is on Sony, right?
Is it not? I definitely played a Spider-Man game on Xbox once way back in the day.
Oh, I see. I'm just disappointed. Spider-Man is not on will not be on Disney Plus or HBO Max. Streaming.
The movie.
Yeah, the movie.
I thought you were talking about a video game.
Because somehow, how did stupid Sony acquire Spider-Man from Marvel? Not Marvel, was Stan Lee, right? Did Stanley create Spider-Man? Anyway, doesn't matter. Just a sidetrack. So yeah, but you did not talk about why Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard though.
Well, I mean, they do own. I think it's probably a smart play, right? Because they own some big titles, right? Because Activision owns Call of Duty, Blizzard has some historic franchises and stuff. but then the company's in the shitter, right? So their price is probably a good deal, right? Like
Yeah,
good
exactly.
time to buy up some stuff that has potential value but struggling right now. It's a good way to like potentially get that for cheaper and then turn it around. That's would be my guess, you know,
But you're missing the main reason.
to make money.
No, to get into Metaverse,
Does
right?
Activision Blizzard have anything to do with Metaverse?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what you talking about?
I was reading and watching stuff. You got to tell me.
What do you mean, Mike? But Microsoft, the whole reason even the articles, they all talk about it. One of the main reason they bought Blizzard and Activision is because they want to push more into Metaverse.
Right. But does Activision Blizzard have anything to do with them? I don't think either they were making anything for the Metaverse.
The whole fundamental of Metaverse is based on games, right? It's gaming.
I wouldn't say that's true. I would actually
Well, in the beginning, all the Metaverse companies, they always start with games.
All right. Maybe this is time. Let's just jump into the main topics now, Metaverse.
Exactly.
So, okay. So I've been, doing some reading, some watching stuff. So
that's why I try to push you toward.
Fair enough. Before I talk about anything, what do you think y'all two think the Metaverse is, or how would you describe it?
It's just, we have online identities across disparate, like, companies and, like, digital resources, and the Metaverse is combining them.
Okay. That's an interesting way to put it.
I think, as I mentioned before, and what I heard is Metaverse is the multi-universe of like digital identity you talk about. Like, for example, like games, right? The Fortnite, all the other multiple verses like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty. Anything you own, you can get into interconnected, and then you can also do online, offline. Potentially Metaverse, where now you can do virtual reality, augmented reality. Augmented reality will enable you to do something physical, right? Now, of course, robotics could enable you to do like something virtual, but also physical too in a real environment, right? So it's not just going to be virtual anymore. It's going to be, so it's almost like, what do you call that? Real Ready Player One, right? But also adding maybe a little bit physical component to that. So, yeah.
Not bad. I think y'all touched on a lot of what I see. And I mean, the first thing is no one really knows because it's like hasn't been made yet. I've heard it likened to talking about what cyberspace is going to be in like 1980. Like people knew the concept that computers could connect and communicate, but they didn't have any idea of what we were going to like build and do with that, right? So I think there's a couple of things, a couple of like key features of the metaverse that the first one is probably VR/AR because they're already online worlds, so to speak. World of Warcraft is one of those, right? Where you have some sort of avatar and there's like persistent places you can go and talk and do things and blah, right? Is in a lot of ways, it's like a very trivial metaverse. But I think the VR AR component is really big and core. Like all these companies and stuff that, are talking about it, they're all doing that in combination with things like VR headsets. And I think the reason is that adds an element of immersion and a difference in sort of the interface that means something, right? Like in the same way that smartphones enabled a lot of stuff, like a smartphone doesn't do anything fundamentally different than a PC, right? Like it connects to the internet and it's a computer. It has a screen, right? It's all the same. But like the details about like how it's portable and some of the smaller details change what really was possible or practical to do and opened up new opportunities, in social media and all sorts, other things, Uber, things like that, right? Like, so I think the idea is VR AR is going to open up similar opportunities because like the new sort of immersive experience is going to make things that you could technically do now on a computer, just through the screen, but it's going to make them practical or enjoyable. So it's big on VR AR. It's big on making a persistent virtual world, or at least like augmented, whether that's an augmented to the reality, like AR, or just like completely separate. It's like supposed to be about making a persistent world where you can have a place to go to. It's not like a Zoom call like this where we just like log in and log out, but it's like a place in the metaverse, kind of like you could potentially in a video game, go to a specific spot in a video game that's online. And I think
Pause
the idea
there.
is, okay.
Why you talk about video games?
Well, video games, I think, are very similar to like a proto metaverse. It's like a smaller scale version of what the metaverse wants to do or people want to do with the metaverse, right? So when you look at something like Minecraft or WoW, they've created worlds where you have stuff and places and people can go do things together. VR chat or Second Life or other games that are actually probably more similar. I think they're less well known, but they're more similar to the idea of the metaverse.
So based on your own answer, does why Microsoft is crying Blizzard make sense to you now?
No.
No?
WoW is, I don't think.
You just say, the game is a proto metaverse and then.
Yes. But I don't think there's any way.
Right?
I don't think there's any coherent way to like go from WoW itself into the metaverse. I think it's like.
What do you mean?
It's like an example it's an example of how something that's sort of similar, right? It's an example of something that could be similar, but like you couldn't build from WoW to make a larger metaverse in the sense that people are talking about it, right? Or do you think you could?
You don't have to. You can start with them being connected to another world. For example, you have a skin in one game. You can make it, Microsoft could make it such that it's portable to the other game, right? So it's one example, right? Yeah.
Well, and I guess I would contend, I guess you could argue from Shu's points, like WoW would be almost like a proof of concept. Like we've shown we have the people who are good at designing these open space, or open world games or whatever they are. So, so basically they would be maybe best suited or, at least well suited to, design something on that scale.
Mm-hmm. I guess,
exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't they try to get into this is where they're starting, right? And they have some IPs and they can use. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but this potentially, I just want to say that's the relation between the acquisition and metaverse.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. I'm not sure if it will be useful for like trying to get into the metaverse, but I see where you're coming from.
I think even the CEO Satya, when he talked about the acquisition, that's exactly why he want to acquire this Blizzard because of metaverse.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and the CEO actually say that. You can watch a video. He actually did say that. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But so, from what I've seen, obviously games will be a part of the metaverse, but I think the key point is that it's not just games, right? Mm-hmm. They want to make a virtual world that people can do everything in, not just a game you hop in and out of, but, like I said, where you hang out and do work, do social stuff and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Buy and shop. Very important, of course.
Yeah.
And then I think the last feature, so that's kind of like the potential things of what you're supposed to do. The VR, AR is kind of the technology that's going to make it like interesting and a meaningful jump. And then I think the last feature is kind of what Mike mentioned is that at least right now, the noble goals put forth is to make it all interoperable, shared, right? So that they'd want to avoid, like right now you go on the internet, you can log into different websites. It's all different, right? You have your Facebook account, you have your TikTok account, you have your YouTube account, they're separate worlds. You go from one to the other, we could easily end up in a world where there's metaverses like that, where you go in with your VR avatar and do things, but individual companies have set up their own ecosystems that are more or less separate and you just log into, just like you can log into a different game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least right now they're like, well, wouldn't it be better if it's kind of all connected and no individual company kind of controls it? Could we set some sort of universal infrastructure that's agreed upon and consistent to sort of share everything? But that will be interesting, but I think that's not, I don't know, there's a good chance that doesn't happen, right? Because I think there's a good chance in the future. Like I saw something, Apple is sort of down on the metaverse. They were kind of like criticizing it, but they're also doing their own work towards similar ideas. And I saw people saying, well, basically they think Apple wants its own, walled garden Appleverse that's independent, right? So if one big company like Apple makes its own thing, that's going to already, be a big blow to the universal metaverse in terms versus having a few that are, maybe there's not dozens, maybe there's like a few big players, kind of like you have a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Switch. Maybe there's 3 big metaverses that companies, choose which one they want to work with. But
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't really mind if Apple just do a walled garden metaverse, Appleverse. I just, hang out there, like iPhone, right? I don't
that's
need
true.
Android.
You love Apple.
I don't need to talk to Android people. That's why actually recently there's they talking about not controversy, more like article about like how Apple using the blue bubble. Like when you do iMessage, if you message like Android people, you got green bubble and stuff. Right? So yeah, so that's why even though I think between us 3, right? Mike and me have iPhone, you have Android, right? So every time but Android always messed up our messaging. And that is you. You always messed up our messaging, right? Because you use Android, so.
I think that means Apple intentionally messes up its messaging to Android because I think they could definitely make it work fine, but they can't make it work too good with other people, right? So, if you want to bring your non-Apple avatar into the Appleverse, it just like comes out kind of like grotesque and disfigured. And they're just like, oh no. But yeah, so, I mean, in the end, it's still what is the metaverse? It's open-ended, but it's supposed to be a VR world. And the idea is that the VR world will be compelling enough that it's fundamentally different from just a nicer way of going to internet websites, but it enables new activities and, opportunities that are, fundamentally different, more enjoyable, more interactive, gets people to pay more money, all that stuff.
The vision of the metaverse, actually the metaverse was invented, is invented in
like a book.
In a book called Snow Crash in 1992 novel.
Yeah.
About pizza delivery driver, right? He in the real world he's a pizza delivery driver, but in the metaverse he has his own a very nice apartment. He can walk around there and he can do transactions in there too. You can people work in there. Stuff like have his own economics, right?
Right,
Stuff
and then
like
that inspired Ready Player One, which was like a reasonably big blockbuster movie.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you log into the virtual space there. And it's not just like one game like World of Warcraft, but it's this whole thing where you have tons of games and different things you can do in this large virtual space / world.
Right. So, I mean, it's
of course, the novel go into a lot of like crazy stuff that happens in the metaverse. So yeah, people should read it. It's pretty interesting.
It'll just feel like the Matrix. You'll just go in and you'll be like, you'll basically show like rather than having passwords, it's like you can walk the streets of like a real city, but then you're like, I'm bored. I'm going to go to like Grand Theft Auto world. And as long as you purchase like rights to that world, you can like take a like subway or something to Grand Theft Auto world and like cause mayhem in the city.
Subway.
Or just flash there or whatever.
Yeah. They'll just drop a portal in front of you, right, to walk through.
Yeah,
this is video game world.
Yeah, so you can go through a portal to that. And then it's like, all right, I'm done with that. So I'm gonna take a portal to, whatever, some other world, like Apple's walled off garden because I purchased, Apple's annual subscription for whatever they do in there, and.
I think, nice. I think, talking about Apple, I guess there's another leak, news about Apple is also working on Google, not VR goggle as well. So, you guys heard about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in kind of some of the stuff I was looking around for the metaverse about Apple being like, we don't like how they are approaching it and they're trying to make their own equipment and their own version, right? It's essentially their own idea of what this sort of future should be. But I think, I don't know, it does seem like most companies are betting that sort of VR, AR is going to be like the future replacing, at least a lot of the time, replacing traditional screens and phones and stuff. Like I'm sure those will still be around, right? But it seems like most people think, people are going to start spending, the majority of people are going to start spending a lot of time like with those goggles on.
Mm-hmm.
But
go ahead.
Well, I think about back to first year at Georgia Tech. I mean, like there's the one attention issue and two, I mean, so there's like short-term things that are going to like delay this, right? Like battery, like, I mean, that was a big thing with Google Glass is like battery life restricted it. But I do wonder about like attention and like people being immersed in the world with something on their face. Like obviously like, phones and to some extent even computers, like I feel like we'll need those for like more like attention intensive tasks, like any type of research, coding, reading. I mean, because like I feel like those wearables that you have like on your face are maybe good for like providing like some basic information about the world around you or offering like basic suggestions or whatever, but they may not be ideal for something more like extensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's weird because I think they're actually really good for input, right? Like in terms of like you can get a lot more information shown to you than on a computer or monitor, right? Because I mean, people have actually set up virtual desktops in VR. So I mean, instead of like having a dual monitor setup or 6 monitors in VR, you can just keep making as many monitors as you want, right? And then you can put a virtual monitor in the VR space. Now, you might be like, well, it's just pixels in front of your eyes, right? Like, what's the difference? The difference is like you can very intuitively, just move your eyes over and then you get a full screen that's the same size as what your real monitor would be, right? But they can just kind of keep making that go on. So with a lot less hardware and cost than, because once you got 6 real big monitors, that's a lot of money. A headset's actually a lot less. But the flip side is like outputting information or input from the user, going back to the computer. Yeah, I don't, waving your hands around is not as good as a keyboard, at least right now. So I don't think you can replace a keyboard and a mouse just yet.
Right. And again, I mean, I see all of this, like, again, yes, if we're living the vast majority of our time in this virtual, the Matrix, like where we can just, go from, portals dropped in front of us and we go to the world we want to go in and things like that. And we're basically just contained in the real, like, quote unquote, real world to, a pretty finite, safe space. Then I guess that's not a big deal. But I guess I'm more thinking like with respect to AR, like, if this is supposed to intended to help us in the real world or like add to the real world, I feel like there are going to be limitations there. Like, yeah, you can wear eyeglasses and when you look at a storefront, it could basically like identify the storefront for you and say like, this is, burger or something, they're known for this type of burger. These are some basic statistics about it. This is the most bought meal. But like beyond that, like, I guess that I don't see people being able to take much more on while still walking down the street and not crashing into each other and not being robbed every 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you will not wear VR goggle when you're walking down the street, right? You wear something like, I don't know, AR goggle, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, yes, yeah. So, but I'm saying the AR is limited in like what the information it can provide. But yes, I mean, VR is more like.
Yeah, actually, potentially, I mean, if your goggle is that smart, you capture your surroundings and then, just nudge you, say, hey, there's an obstacle there, there's a car coming,
Well, VR goggles have something called, I guess it depends which one, but most have cameras on them and can do something called pass-through where they just show you the world around you on your screen through the cameras. Right. And obviously it doesn't look exactly as realistic, right? Because it's on a screen now from cameras, but like, they can show you the world you're in and then you can move and do stuff like normal. But since it's now on a screen, they can easily add things. So,
yeah,
the augmented reality of where like you see the real world through like normal lenses, but then they sort of supplement that with like extra screen. Mm-hmm. That might not happen. It might be, the solid goggles. You're just looking at a screen that's combining camera output with, the AR information.
Yeah, sure. VR, AR combined kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's just AR is sensory limitations, right? I mean, there's a certain amount of limitation to how much can.
Like, limitation for now. I'm just saying. I'm just expecting the technology is probably going to progressively get better, right?
Mhm.
But are we going to progress? I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
how
we're
much
gonna
can we
progress
handle?
toward our end. What do you mean by are we gonna progress?
Well,
Mike's worried about human overload.
yes, I mean, we're already we're getting to a place, right, where like basically humans will not be able to like see like the differences between like essentially like the technological advancement, right? Like the speed at which recordings are created, like essentially don't matter beyond a certain point, right? Like the sampling rate of images and stuff like that. So, I guess okay, we have this VR world, and I guess we can go right up until a certain point, but it's like if we have a like VR AR headset that's overlaying the world with a lot of stuff, you know, like I guess how much can we handle without, you know, just like essentially not being able to navigate the world successfully, or like not being able to navigate the world as we like, you know, safely, or as we do today.
So I would actually think we could probably handle quite a lot because the human brain's pretty good at filtering stuff out once it gets like accustomed to it. I think we'll get to the point where they realize it's too, like we'll still be able to do things because you'll just be filtering it all out, and they'll be like, well, this isn't an effective way of doing anything because you're just teaching people to ignore it, right? That would be my guess, that it's not going to get like crazy in terms of just like shit everywhere, because it wouldn't be helpful at that point.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there was a study that showed basically like, yeah, I mean, we only encode like 10% or something of like, you know, what's around us in a given moment or something. So it's,
just I mean, you don't even need to study. Just look at magicians, right? That's how they work.
Yeah. No,
magic tricks.
That is true.
So we talk about metaverse. So have you seen any like companies that are doing interesting stuff, try to make the metaverse a reality?
I mean, right now it seems like what most companies are pushing is still better hardware. And I think the hardware is probably good enough that you could do it, but I think they still want it better. I mean, that's what I see, right? Like I saw a bunch of companies are developing their own AR and VR goggles and headsets. And, you know, Facebook is talking about getting this sort of agreed upon infrastructure, which I mean, has a lot of technical details, right? Like that's the technical details of like how the software works and to define the standards that allow this interoperability. But it doesn't seem like anyone's made meaningful progress on that, right? At least nothing that I saw public. Then of course, let's not forget the most important aspect, the people who want to put blockchain technology into it, you know, to make their crypto and NFTs more valuable, which depends on the details about how they do this interoperability may or may not make sense as, you know, a technology to implement this sort of stuff. But but there's definitely people who want to push that.
I mean, that's the whole concept of NFT, right? You can digital authentication. That's why that's one key component that actually enable the metaverse potentially, because you can, you know, you go from different world, you can digital authenticate it, right?
Right. Potentially the reason it makes sense in a metaverse is since it's decentralized, right? Like people try to talk about NFTs in video games, which doesn't make any sense because video games right now are entirely centralized, and they need to be. But if you know, maybe since the metaverse is decentralized, maybe that makes sense actually there.
Yeah. Also, then I guess there's a few companies that have you heard of Decentraland, right?
Is that one of the ones where people are selling virtual land?
Exactly.
See, this doesn't make sense because in the virtual world you can just make infinite land.
Well, I think so. I'm not sure about what game component there. I mean, I think it's a game too, and also sandbox, right? Have you heard of sandbox? Similar idea, and they have. I mean, people can, you know, work. I mean, yeah, buy the land too. And there's a game component too. You know, play games, stuff like that. So those are one of few companies that considering themselves that metaverse companies try to get to certain try to go there explicitly, right? Not starting from a game, but they will try to build from the ground up, right? So
build a game that's meant to be metaverse compatible.
I mean, Snoop Dogg have a mansion in Decentraland, right? And then the land right next to it, right? Someone bid it and bought it too for like $65 million or something. because Snoop Dogg bought it, so you can be neighbors to Snoop Dogg.
So this is an interesting ethical question I actually saw brought up because, this is a big difference between the physical and digital world is like fundamental limits, right? Like in the physical world, there is only so much land. Only one person can own a plot. So, you have this sort of inherent, limitation, and some would argue that creates inequality. So trying to recreate, some people have said that trying to recreate that system in like a digital world when there's literally, unlimited potential to make new stuff is, borderline evil because, we should embrace the fact that we can create a world that has no, limits, like a post-scarcity utopia in the virtual world. Now, I do think at least in isolated context, limitations make sense, right? Like within a game, it can make sense to say, well, we don't want there to be infinite land because you want players to compete or fight over it somehow, right? Like you play games where people try to like conquer land back and forth and things like that, right? So like in like a small scale context, that makes sense. But if you're talking about the metaverse being like a second world where you have a shared, like a broad shared thing where people spend time and money and have jobs and stuff in it, then, do you want that to be something where it's like limited and only like the wealthy people can have land in the metaverse? Or should it be, unlimited?
No? Yeah. If you're getting early, you don't need to be wealthy to buy it, actually. If you get in early.
So what about the people who aren't born yet, right?
That kind of brought me an interesting question. Like the whole economic theory is based on scarcity, right? Supply and demand, right? How economic theory works. But if there's no scarcity, I feel like scarcity is a fundamental to how to make an economic system work. If there's no scarcity, what is it? Are we still going to have an economy?
There's no scarcity of some things in the virtual world, right? But there'll still be a scarcity of human labor, human attention, and other things. But you're right, like physical goods, right, will become not scarce. Like right now, we don't have a scarcity of air, right? You don't have to pay for air. That might change in 100 years, but right now you don't have to pay for air, right? But we still have an economy. It's just one element that you don't have to do. So a virtual world would remove a lot of the stuff, but there'd still at least be some things that would be limited, mostly related to people, right?
Yeah.
And from a company's perspective, people's attention and people's labor is very important.
Yeah.
And people's money. You keep the money limited, right?
Well, you can still make land limit. You can still land infinite, right? Now, if you don't limit the land, but whoever, now people want to visit the land that has some significant to it, right? For example, Snoop Dogg have a mansion in this plot of land, right? People would like to go hang out in that area, right? So that the price, the value of that area go up, right? So I mean, yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
Even if you make it unlimited, you still have some kind of economic.
Well, yeah. I mean, so it's like I say, if I'm in my Matrix, then I can take a portal anywhere. But if I take a portal to Grand Theft Auto game land, then I need to purchase the access to that. Or if I take a portal to Apple land, then I need to have purchased a yearly subscription to get inside its walled off places.
Right. But the question is, where does this value come from, right? Like Snoop Dogg, like if the plot, like if the house is valuable because it's Snoop Dogg's house, people want to come, who is Snoop Dogg having to pay? What company would he have to pay to say, create his virtual house, right? Like, and would he have to pay more than anyone else that could make an identical house, but it's just not Snoop Dogg's, right? Like, so the question of where this value is coming from and who's getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Is it essentially GoDaddy?
Is a house something like setting up a website, right? Instead of buying a website, you buy a virtual plot and then people can portal in that and you can set the settings to allow people to come in, and you can build your little virtual world as you want. And there's companies that would probably set up, like things of like, oh, here's like templates for houses and stuff.
Right.
Something that
Twitter
probably will exist.
Twitter handles have been worth thousands of dollars, and
But you don't have to pay to buy a Twitter handle, right? And there's infinite Twitter handles. You don't have to pay to create a normal Twitter handle. Sorry, right? But yeah, someone could potentially sell one that they've made famous.
Yeah,
but that's different than
Twitter,
imagine if Twitter said there's only 100, there's a million Twitter accounts and we're going to start bidding.
Sure, but at the beginning of the .com boom, you did need to pay to register www.whatever.com, and people registered a ton of websites and sold them to celebrities, companies, whatever, So, that initial investment was, they did have to make an initial investment to get like a big gain. So, these people, there may not, I guess it's not necessarily a great comparison, but people could make a small investment for some type of, purchase of land in the metaverse. And then, again,
I think the website's a good analogy, right? Because are these things going to be even addressed by like words that you can just type out? Because that adds some value, right, of making your website like easy to access, because it's a very simple 1 or 2 words related to, it's Ford.com. So people who are interested in a Ford truck, go to Ford.com, right? There's like clear value there, right? But maybe that's not how this stuff works in terms of like the underlying tech, right?
Right, exactly. Well,
but maybe you pay to have own that link anyway, right? Like, I want the link that says, if you click Ford, it goes to my Ford Metaverse world.
Right. Yeah. And I guess this assumes how it's all organized, but say it is organized sort of like a matrix, and you can literally walk out onto your street. Literally the street, your neighbor could be literally just your neighbor in memory addresses or something. And even though you can take a portal anywhere, I guess there may be some, some level of value associated with I'm near a celebrity, or I'm near this other thing in a memory address that is desirable. So
speaking of Matrix, you guys seen a new movie?
I haven't yet. I want to.
I did. I hate The Matrix, just the series in general. But
I really liked the original series, but I heard the new movie was not so great. No spoilers.
No.
Why don't you like The Matrix?
Because
of course, the second and third one, of course, it doesn't count, but the first one is really good.
But just the idea underlying it is terrible.
Like the whole get energy from humans.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little ridiculous, but you let that slide, and it's a good movie.
All right. Yes, if I go purely based on it's action, but I just hate that. I just hate the idea behind it. So,
what the idea? The idea of getting energy from human. Why is that bad?
Because it doesn't make sense.
It's a movie. When does movie make? When does movie ever make sense?
Because it's, I guess, sci-fi. If you're gonna write science fiction, then I feel like having some grounding in reality is desirable for me. I love horror movies, and they're total bullshit too. It's Michael Myers can not be killed, and he just slashes through this town, and they can shoot him and electrocute him, but he's evil. I'm fine with that. But it's if it's science fiction, I feel I don't know.
I think it's not really. That's the whole point. It's science fiction. It doesn't have to be science. It's science fiction. Anything that includes science doesn't mean it has to be science based. It just means it's called fiction. Another thing I'm saying, I like the idea is because it's really just give a warning to humans, right? It's it's putting human reverse, right? Humans have always been the one that actually polluting the planet, draw energy from the planet. I think the whole idea is to make it invert that equation, right? I think that's the whole intention behind the idea.
Sure. Okay. But I would have probably liked The Matrix a lot if they gave almost no justification. If it's just humans are being held here.
But you kind of missing the whole point. The whole point is not that draw energy from human. That's kind of minor plot of the movie, though, right? You're missing the.
Well, it may be not harped on, but it's literally why this exists. Like why the movie exists and the Matrix exists.
But that's not the whole point. Like, that's not the main takeaway for most people.
Yeah. Yes. So I feel like Chu in that I'm willing to suspend the disbelief for like this like explanation because it creates a very interesting world and setup, right? Which they do a lot of, and then they extrapolate from that interesting things. But I mean, you're right. The base explanation is stupid. But
why give
what else
the
are they
base
going to do, right?
Like why?
I mean, what would you do alternative, right? What's the better idea? There's no reason for robots to like evil robots to trap people and then put them at, in the first place in pods, right? If they hated humans, they just kill them all.
Well, they could make it such as vampires keeping humans around for blood, energy, and keep them into a matrix, They just put the machine into vampires.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen a movie that's kind of like that anyway.
Exactly.
But, minus the whole virtual world part. They just farmed humans and just let them suffer, but.
Or even humans just basically just like it's an evil corporation, right? Like basically that has people has removed the real world or has like essentially removed people from the real world and keeps them in this place. Like,
that's the whole point of Metaverse. And that's what whole Metaverse is about.
Yes.
Evil corporations like Meta, Apple, gonna put people into the simulated world.
But are they actually going to give?
Because you're describing reality. And that's why we don't make it into a movie because that's a coming reality.
Yeah.
No, you're like Kit, where she's not good at suspending disbelief to like enjoy the rest of a show on things that aren't like well explained or don't give good explanations. And I'm like, you got to just be able to let that slide, and then you'll enjoy TV more.
I guess it's specifically, and again, this is just because I guess it's the area we're in. Like, so it's like, it's harder for me to suspend disbelief in an area I'm in. Like I say,
you're not in energy generation. You're in computer science. Totally different.
Yeah.
The thermodynamics, you're saying the thermodynamics don't make sense. That has nothing to do with what you studied because I know what you studied.
That is fair. Okay. So, but
I'll just pretend like, it totally does make sense. You just didn't take enough physics as an undergrad. So sorry.
Okay. That is fair. So,
yeah.
But like I say, I can do it for horror movies. Show me a good ghost movie, I'm all in. So.
Wow.
See, ghost movies don't scare me because, like, I can suspend the disbelief to like enjoy it, but they don't scare me because they don't feel real enough to be like scary. I guess, like when it's supernatural stuff like that.
Well, have you seen what's the scary Japanese movie that crawling on the TV?
Ring.
Yeah. Have you seen The Ring?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Matt, it doesn't scare you?
That's the one where they saw a video and died 7 days later.
Yes.
Like Spoilers. It was like, it didn't like really scare me. No, like,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway,
the
what
third one less so.
What?
Like the third Ring was a little bit like I actually, the opening scene of the third Ring is literally, there's a plane full of people. And someone is going to die, and Samara comes through like the TV on the back of the seat.
Really?
Yes. And the plane.
I need to watch the third Ring. Oh, that sounds fun.
So it's pretty epic. So, in any case, we can continue with Metaverse.
All right. So in summary, the Metaverse is going to happen, right? Companies are going to make immersive virtual worlds because VR, AR equipment's actually getting really good and it's going to progress, and there's going to, it does offer new potential. The open question is, how is it going to build? Is it going to be just everything shared and universal? Is it going to be, another way for the, people with money to pay for everything and make people without money suffer? Or is it going to be more equitable? I don't know. It'll be up to Mark Zuckerberg. He'll decide.
Yeah, that's why he even, changed his name to Facebook to Meta, right?
Yeah.
Also,
Facebook has a bad brand, but
true. And good point. But have you heard that Metaverse is already here for cows?
Yeah, I saw that link you sent. The cows with VR goggles.
Yeah, make them more productive, generate more milk.
And, I think you could say the companies just want to turn us into those cows, right? Slap a headset on us and make us more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Think about it.
This is whole society is all about, right? It's making people productive.
Well, I mean, you keep saying cows, but I mean, humans are likened to sheep a lot. And, sheep are the most herdable animal.
I didn't know that. Ducks are pretty herdable.
Yeah, well,
I'll believe you. I'll trust you that sheep are the most herdable animal.
Well, no. I mean, to be fair, a lot of like when I was doing that project on like shepherding robots, like
oh, right.
Like literally every study was sheep and ducks. So like just
sheep are very easy followers because they have certain. The way you heard it is that, and they only pay attention to the sheep that are surrounding them, right? Not feel in a close proximity. So, I mean, there's a lot of incidents in the news, right? In Turkey or somewhere, like 300 sheep following a single sheep off a cliff, right? And all of them die because, just because the leader sheep decided to walk off a cliff.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I guess there have also been like psychology and sociology studies in people where it's like, so the sheep and ducks and all these animals, there's these local interactions that lead to global movement, right? But I mean, in humans, there have been studies that have shown like a few people can cause like local change, which can sort of balloon to more global, like it's following the same type of pattern where local interactions can dictate more global interaction or global shifts. So,
all right, let's round out this discussion. I have a question for y'all. What do you want the metaverse to look like, or what would you want from it, in 10, 20 years?
I wouldn't object to like I say, I don't necessarily object to the Matrix idea. I mean, 10 or 20 years is obviously soon, but where I step in a portal and can just go to like different worlds that I want to visit. But
I mean, you can do that in VR chat right now today.
Yes.
You could buy a headset. It just would be, limited and not as nice looking, I'm sure, but you can do that. Just a heads up.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess part of it, I mean, like, I don't know how much haptic, like how immersion there is. So honestly, like if it's 10 or 20 years, I'm more on the AR, like what I'm interested in is more AR. So like where I can walk through the world and, maybe get like updated about like, oh, like around the corner is, New York's best pizza based on 47,000 ratings, those types of updates. But, and it, like, just, I guess just, something like VR goggles with a camera that can sort of show me, like overlay more information about the world and facilitate, going.
So you want like
and things.
The Iron Man suit Jeeves, like, where he has the vision of the world and it like shows him all the stuff.
Yeah, I guess that would probably be what I mean, I'm not like a gamer, so it's like I'm not that interested in, merging and I'm trying to use social media like a lot less. So I'm basically just like, if I can like facilitate like fun in the real world, then that's what I'm for.
Huh. Good perspective.
Personally for me, I don't really like technology. I'm not really, I don't like to complicate life with like all these like fancy, metaverse goggles. I don't wear anything. So I say, I'm not really super excited about metaverse or all these stuff. I'm not a hype, but everybody pushing into it because I like real world. So I like to walk do stuff in the real world, more like activities, stuff like that, instead of in a virtual environment. So because if you spend time in the virtual world, that means you spend less time in the real world. Like personally for me, I prefer to spend time in more in the real world. So so I'm not sure if I would participate, and it's not very, not very early. Yeah, I might experiment with it a little bit just to curious what it's about. But personally, I like to be in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. To add my 2 cents, which is different than y'all's, like I am excited about more VR stuff, but I'm totally fine with, like, I don't feel that, I'm not sure I see a lot of benefit in having one universal metaverse. Like, I think it's totally fine if we just have companies and games and stuff are separate, right? Like, I like the idea of being able to do remote collaboration where it feels like you're standing next to someone using like VR, right? So then you can like whiteboard ideas, like, cause that's useful, right? I could see that helping collaboration, but I don't particularly want my work accounts to be the same as my gaming accounts, right? Like I like the idea that those could just be separate things, entirely.
Yeah.
But a lot of what the metaverse vision push right now is everything's universal. And I don't know. I don't see necessarily the benefit. Like if you just have all these virtual worlds that are just separate and independent, I feel like that adds an element of safety and, privacy and just other things that are nice, right? No independent company can control everything or force you to do anything, because if you don't like it, you just hop to a different one, right? A different game, a different social platform, a different work environment, just like Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever, right? Like you can just choose, so you have options, and options create competition, which usually keeps things like, from being terrible, right? Because if you have one universal metaverse, there's no competition anymore. Like that's it. And so, if someone with power decides they don't like person A because they, are trying to, it's to say there's a journalist who is trying to share information, and the metaverse is now how a lot of people share information, just like social media has replaced a lot of traditional media right now. Maybe the metaverse replaces that. Can they ban them? Can they make something up and ban them from the metaverse? And that becomes like a huge problem, right? To me, discrete seems actually good.
Actually, yeah, that's what a lot of people are talking about. Like, it's not actually, I think a lot of advocates of metaverse, it's not, the main advantage of metaverse is that you can actually be someone else, actually, right? So you go on a metaverse, you can be someone completely different identity. You can explore stuff like that, and then you don't know, people don't know who you are. And that's what NFT enables too. Is it kind of decentralized, so nobody know who your real identities are, right? So yeah.
But like I said, that doesn't
seem us anything. It's humans when they're given the power to be anonymous are great.
That is true. I'm not saying there aren't downsides, but you
gotta weigh the risk and rewards.
Yeah. And you're right. I don't know, but like, I mean, you've also looked at metaverse stuff, right? The impression, it's not always clear, but the impression that Meta's vision seems to be universal, right? Which, unless it just lets you make multiple accounts, like as many as you want, then you're kind of locked in. You make your account, you lock it in with your social security number or whatever, and that's you in the virtual world, right? And then that's like it. You're limited.
Yeah, I'm not. They could work differently, like, because it's in one metaverse, but metaverse doesn't mean it's a single universe. I think it could be like multiple universe but interconnected. You can jump from one universe to the other. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, like from World of Warcraft to Overwatch, or I don't know, Halo or something like that. Right? You can jump between different worlds. You have different identity in different worlds. Right, but you have a single, it's a single system, the metaverse, that is not controlled by anybody else. It's not controlled by anybody, right? And that's what they were mainly talking about. Like, the metaverse is a matter because it's multiple universes. I mean, that's my interpretation on what other people are talking about.
I guess it's semantics, but if you have a different identity and a different, virtual world, how do you say? What's the difference between you jumping from one to the other versus logging out in your identity here and then logging into a different identity over there, right?
Well, there's no difference except that you can migrate all your ownership to the other world too. For example, if you own some skins and clothes, like fancy, like a single item, like Gucci bag, people like, Adidas, Nike shoes, that is really super expensive. There's only one in the world. That you can transfer from one world to the other, right?
Yeah.
That you can walk on the street with this item, right? So that's something like that, right? A digital ownership that you can transfer from one world to the other. Yeah.
So,
I don't know. That's what I'm just thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got two people who don't want the metaverse and one who wants it to not be quite so revolutionary.
I mean,
I think that's our summary.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that, like, I don't want it. It's just, I'm just probably not going to be a super early adopter of, like, you know, virtual VR. Like I've tried a lot of different VR. My brother's into it and stuff, but it's just like, I don't know. It's like until it gets to the point where you're actually like truly immersed, I don't necessarily find it that exciting. Like,
I was going to say that reminds me. I think, like the hands, I think are a huge thing right now in immersion, right? Because I feel like the headsets are good, but then you like having to hold a controller and like press a button kind of breaks you out of it.
Right.
But if they get to the point either through tracking hands or just like wearing gloves where you can just like do things by, you know, using your actual hands, I think that will step up the immersion significantly.
Cool. Nice work.
All right. Metaverse. We'll see what happens with it in like 10 years. Exciting stuff.
All right. Cool. So yeah, it could be, anyway, it could be just like on this hype, right? Everybody's getting to it, but it turns out to be just like a flying car, right? Like everybody want a flying car a long time ago, and we never really get there in the vision, but we're gonna get something like airplane, maybe.
I think the .com analogy was actually really good, right? Because there's a bubble, the .com bubble, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a clear use cases, and I think there's a lot of hype right now, and a lot of unknown kind of people aren't sure what's really going to work or not. And there's probably going to be like a bunch of stuff made, and then it's going to crash, and then we're going to figure out like, oh, this is what works, this is what people like and don't like. I don't know. I don't see how you get to a world where there aren't VR virtual worlds don't become more of a part of people's lives, but you know, the details is just to be figured.
Cool. All right. Anything what are we talking about next week? I mean, not next week, next
meeting. I think I think Europe show. I mean, like the next time I go, and I think it would be better if I do it like, so our next.
Well, what's your
meeting,
topic? We don't need about the time, but what's the topic?
K-pop.
Oh, K-pop. All right. We can figure out the schedule later, but yeah. What about you, Matt? Yeah, go ahead, Mike. You going to say something?
Well, I was going to say I want to go on our meeting on the 19th of February because I'm going to my first K-pop concert on the 24th of February. So
wait, should you do it after you go to the concert?
Yeah,
I guess.
Also,
do it
after
after you go to the
become a
concert,
K-pop
actually.
fan?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a huge K-pop fan, but Jake and Paige love it, so I want to have at least one of them on when we do it.
So, you see a lot of screaming teenagers in the concert then?
Maybe. I don't know what to expect, but we're seeing twice.
Is it in Central Stage?
No, it's
okay.
Whatever the basketball arena is, Phipps.
Okay.
Or not? It's not. It's State Farm now, I guess. But.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
My next topic?
Yeah.
Unknown yet.
Unknown yet. What about chip shortage?
That sounds kind of boring.
5G.
All right, we don't have to go through this list right now.
What about 5G?
I mean, what about it? You know, it's rolling out. Who cares?
Just recently, rolling out. There's a lot of controversies. Now, what the hell is? What's wrong? We can, dive into 5G tech. Now, why is it really bad?
Is it bad?
I don't know. A while ago, there's a few years ago, there's something about China. China making all the 5G technology, and then it's security, national security, and now all people are just putting 5G.
It sounds like you should talk about it.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's too much work, too much research.
What's going to be your next topic, Shu?
I'm talking about 5 dysfunctions of a team.
5 dysfunctions of a team.
Yes.
Okay. Help people work as teams more effectively.
Yeah.
Moderate conflict.
Yeah. What?
It's a moderate conflict. That's the key to teamwork.
Exactly.
And how do you do that, Mike?
There may be a robot involved.
You need to have a robot reflect people's emotions back to them or something.
That's right. So they can acknowledge them, and it doesn't. The conflict doesn't exacerbate, and it stays task-based.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, Sue can go next.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up the recording for here, I guess.
All right. So, see you in a couple of weeks.
Junto Club.